Maureen, do you hear me?
I do.
Please make me a co-host.
Okay.
You can just do that by default. How many is a quorum for us? 5?
4.
4? Okay. Well, we know, remember, Chisholm won't be able to be here, but if I remember right, remember Emelhan said he wouldn't be able to make this, but he's here. So that's good.
I'm here.
Hello. Yeah, you said you wouldn't be able to make it tonight, right?
Actually, I think on the other schedule, I wouldn't have been able to, but with the change, it worked out. So I made
Oh,
it.
okay, good. So we're still short one member for a quorum. Let's give it another couple minutes. There we go. Okay, we have enough for a quorum, so we can start this meeting. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Ms. Willis, will you please take roll?
Chair Green,
Present?
Vice Chair Watson, Member Strom, Member Hughes. You guys have to say your name because
Yeah, please speak up, unmute and say when you're here. And please,
Yes.
I would prefer everyone use video. If we're gonna be zooming, let's do video.
Hughes.
Member Strom,
Present.
Member Hughes,
Edie Hughes, present.
Member Engelhines,
Present.
alternate Member Redovid, absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Oh, and we just had member Redovich show up. So she is, you want to just say present, member Redovich, so we hear it?
Yep, present.
All right, thank you. So great. We have on our agenda. It's the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Member Emmelhines. Is there a second? Member Strom has raised her hand. So as a second, was there any discussion, any corrections? Anyone have any thoughts, concerns? Okay. Ms. Willis, please take a vote on the motion to approve the minutes.
Everybody needs to unmute themselves. Okay, so we'll do Member Strong. Aye or nay?
Yes. Yay.
Thank you. Member Hughes? Aye.
Yay.
Member Emmelhines?
Yay.
Alternate Member Redovit?
Yay.
Thank you. And Chair Green?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are now to the part of the agenda for public forum. There is someone in attendees. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. There's an expectation the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. We may ask questions for clarification, but there won't be any back and forth dialogue. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. Is the person who's an attendee interested in addressing the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee? Seven 720-44-11260. Looks like you're unmuted.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome and thank you for coming. And what are your thoughts? And Ms. Willis, will you please time it?
I also need her name.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm gonna assume. So who is it that's joining us?
Colleen Dickerson.
Hello, Ms. Dickerson. Thanks for showing up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a few concerns about the code that's up for review. And one of the passages, it's on the Title VII on dogs, impound revisions. I would like on passage where it says known to the city, if the dog is known
May
to
I
the
interrupt
city.
for just a moment, please? This is an agendized item, is that correct? That is correct, right? So this isn't really public information. You should speak during that item unless there's some reason why you cannot.
I'm
Well,
confused.
I'm not going
This
to
is
be
the-
on the phone for very long.
Hold
Pardon
on
me?
just a second. Ms. Willis, are you saying that we would have public input during other parts of our meeting besides the public forum?
Normally, how it works is that somebody who wants to speak on Title VII absolutely has a chance to speak on Title VII at that time. But if she has some other reason why she cannot speak during that time, then she can speak during public forum. Normally, public forum is for items that aren't on the agenda to bring to your guys' attention so that maybe next time you'll put it on your agenda to discuss.
I've never in any meeting I've participated in with the city for, since the beginning of 2000 had public input during parts of the meeting that were among committee or board members. How would that even be introduced? I've never experienced someone just suddenly talking in the middle of discussion between committee and board members.
You're the chairperson, you can do as you like. However, you can also ask for public comment every time you have an item on your agenda, but you're the chairperson, so you do what you like.
Okay, to me, I think it makes more sense to have public input during the public forum. If there's something someone saw on the agenda that they have input on, questions on, comments on that they would like to bring to our attention, then that seems like the appropriate time for them to do that, whether they want to bring things up that are on the agenda or not on the agenda.
Yeah, the box is in.
Excuse me? Someone's got background noise going. Please keep yourselves muted unless you're speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to allow Ms. Dickerson to speak and restart her time. Go ahead, Ms. Dickerson.
Okay, there are some things came up in the previous meeting that concerned me. The discussion, and I think I'll start with that particular thing. An experience I had. My dog got lost. A neighbor took down my fence without me knowing about it or telling me, and my dog got out and was looking for me, and he was picked up in Bates Logan Park. I found out within 30 minutes I was down at the shelter because he dropped the dog off at the shelter. And I was told at that time that I could not get my dog out of the shelter without getting a ticket for at large, or they'd lose their contract with the city. And I heard in the meeting something about that it was automatically impounded and I had to pay a ticket for dog at large before I could get my dog out. The agreement doesn't say anything about that. Impound is only when a city official actually picks up a dog and puts it in the pound. And it was a very traumatic experience for me and my dog. And I think that something should be clarified on that issue, because I don't see how code enforcement has any authority to deputize a private enterprise that's not even in this city to impound and inform and get a ticket before they release the dog. But the code as it exists and is under review, I think that a few other changes need to be made or at least considered by the committee, where it says the dog can be returned to the owner if it's known to a city official. I would think you would want to be a little more specific and say if the dog has tags or a microchip or is otherwise known, it can be released to the owner or returned to the owner immediately. And another one is there's a whole thing about hearing for probable cause after impound. Should not the probable cause be established before the impounding and a warrant be issued based on probable cause before seizing an animal from private property or a private owner? I can see not having it for exigent circumstances like the dog is dangerous, but or doesn't have any way of determining who the owner is. So I could understand that that's an exigent circumstance, but the hearing doesn't establish probable cause. The probable cause should be established and a warrant issued before seizing from private property. And that's my main concerns.
Do any committee members have any questions for Ms. Dickerson? I'd like to clarify one thing about the experience you told us. So your dog got out, your fence was changed by someone. Just trying to make sure I understand what happened. Your dog got out, a good Samaritan picked it up, took it to the pound. You were notified somehow? Was there like a phone number on the dog's collar, or was it a chip? How did they get to you?
No, it was, I'm not on Nextdoor, but a friend of mine saw a picture of my dog on Nextdoor and gave my information to the Good Samaritan, who texted me
Got it. Okay, so
And,
you were notified that your dog was at the shelter really quickly, one way or another. You went there and got to the shelter, you're saying 30 minutes after the dog got there? And
approximately, yes.
okay, and then my understanding is when this situation happens, even if it's on a weekend, the shelter reports it to code enforcement. Code enforcement will come to the shelter and issue a ticket and allow you to take your dog. Is that not what happened for you?
No, what I was told was that you can't have your dog back. You have to go to an interview with code enforcement at police headquarters and get a ticket for dog at large and pay the fine. And then code enforcement will allow us to release the dog to you.
So they didn't give you an option to have a code enforcement officer come to the shelter?
Nope.
And they-
And she, I informed her that I didn't think that that was part of their agreement. She said, because if we don't do this, we will lose our contract. And I go, I don't think that code enforcement has any authority to do that. And she's, well, I'm going to call the police and they'll tell you. So she called the police and nothing happens. In the meantime, the supervisor comes out and asks me the situation, and before I could even say any more than, she won't give me my dog back. He's only been here for 30 minutes. He's senior, he needs medicine. Before I could even get that out, she pointed at the woman who's on the phone and said, give her dog back right now. This circumstances don't warrant anything with code enforcement at this point. And I was very grateful.
So you did
I
not
filled
end
out
up getting a
paperwork.
ticket at all?
No.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you for coming and speaking and letting us know about your experience about this topic that we're discussing. I appreciate it, Ms. Dickerson. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how to, okay, I guess we can mute that. There we go. Okay, I don't see anyone else present besides that person, so we'll close the public forum and move on to report from Code Manager Lewis. Hello.
Hi, my friends. How are you doing tonight? Good to see all of you and your faces. It was nice to also meet with you several weeks ago. I wanted to just give you kind of an update of some activities. Currently, we are down 2 code officials due to FMLA leave. So we've been stretched a little bit thin here in code enforcement with the amount of work and calls for service, and our proactive activities have gone down the last several weeks due to that. So we do anticipate being back fully staffed when those team members return within the next couple weeks. So I will be happy to have them back. One of the proactive activities that the park ranger and code has been conducting is in relation to Bellevue Park. There's been several community meetings that have taken place and surveys regarding some activities that have occurred there in the past. And so we've really tried to help out and reach out and be a part of the neighborhood discussion. We're actively doing extra patrols along with police of the parks to try and deter some of the behaviors that have occurred that would be considered nuisance, monitoring parking lots, making sure that we're not having any camps set up, and when we do, we're notifying the appropriate personnel to provide resources and to get those people to move along. Sleeping on benches, trying to deter graffiti. Some of the more minor nuisance things are what my team has been concentrating on in that area. Not counting October because I'm not able to generate those statistics until next month. So July, August, and September, we've opened 68 active increased patrols in those months to better support that neighborhood. So I wanted to report out on that. I'm sure you all have heard about those concerns or read about them or seen them on Nextdoor. So I really wanted to make sure that that you are aware of the extra resources that have been dedicated to that community based off of their feedback.
So this is specifically about Bellevue Park,
Yes.
and how are the committee meeting or community meetings organized?
That is done through our community relations department with community members in the immediate area. So homeowners were present. One of the large meetings that we had at the park, and if I'm not speaking out of turn, I know that one of your members is part of that, as well as a council member that did attend that meeting.
Member Emmelhines? You're muted.
Thank you. I want to thank Code Enforcement Manager Lewis for all the work that he and his team have been doing, and we definitely appreciate that. I'm actually live very close to Bellevue Park and was part of the group that requested some additional things happen that would help to secure the park better in the ways of lighting, better maintenance of parking lots in the area. For a while, we had the overflow parking lot for Bellevue Park roped off, and I think that created a nice deterrent that minimized the sort of information passing among groups that said this was an open area that they could do things in. It has since been reopened. My question for David is, do you see, if you have any idea how many people have attempted to overnight park there or have been needed to be taken off of that parking area and that overflow since the work was done with regard to the roping off?
Rick, I'm not familiar. Most of the code enforcement work is done before 7 at night. Most of our activities regarding overnight parking or camping would happen early in the morning when the park would still be closed. And I don't have the park ranger hasn't reported anything specific regarding his activities. It does not mean that police aren't involved, and that's a great question to ask Crystal. She's the best person for that resource.
I've reached out to her already. I just thought perhaps you might, I could cut it through it a little bit, and if you knew anything more. But again, I want to thank very much the rapid response that was done by EPD and specifically you, Manager Lewis, so that we're moving forward on a lot of activities that way. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate your kind words, Rick. This was a new learning opportunity for all of us in a better way. We are following a different model, policing model with this particular incident, and I think it's been successful with getting community members involved, getting multiple stakeholders, those people that are actively working and communicating, and we really tried to open up the lines of communication. So I think, although it's not perfect yet, I think this model was very successful, and I think the city is going to, the police department specific, is going to continue to utilize this community engagement model, and we're not keeping things from citizens. We're communicating. They're part of an active email list. We're pushing stuff out to them as we have information. Some stuff we're not able to release because of the district attorney's office, but we are trying to maintain that model. And as Rick said, and I apologize for calling you Rick if that's okay. I think this is one success story of how we can utilize this model moving forward with problem hotspots.
Thank you.
Code Manager List, can you tell us a little bit more about the model and how that came about and kind of how the flow of it works?
Oh, perfect. So Crystal, who is our community relations liaison here in crime prevention partner, came in with a lot of experience specifically in this area, and she brought this model forward. The city council, the city manager's office, several citizens went to council and expressed their concern. And so it was best that we set a community meeting. And we've done this in the past, and I don't think it's been as successful because the follow-up component wasn't there. And so with this, is we allowed the citizens to sign up and generate being put on an email list. We were able to communicate some of the activities and some of the requests and how that's going to move forward. And I think that's where the success is we've taken it in little steps. So we received the complaint, multiple complaints and concerns from a neighborhood. We brought all of the neighbors together to have an open, honest conversation about what took place that night. There was a shooting. It's public knowledge, just so you all know, with some players that are not in the city. We won't see those people again. It just happened to be an odd circumstance that they picked this park in the middle of nowhere. That we've communicated back out information regarding the case. And we've continued to do follow-up, especially regarding some of the requests that they've made to try and improve safety in that park.
I see. So this could be the model would potentially be used anytime there's maybe several complaints for a particular thing. And then how would you find the community members to get them involved in the email list, or, you know what I mean?
So in that circumstance, one, we had a number of witnesses that were involved with the incident. So we started there. We also really relied on the citizens to work together neighborly. We really want our neighbors to be part of a neighbor, work together collaboratively to approach the city with creative solutions, not just tell us what a problem is. And so this was so successful because one, we communicated with the residents. The residents met and communicated with each other and came to the city with some potential solutions that we could implement, things that they wanted to see. And then we had the community meeting where we outlined what we could do, how it could happen, what it looks like, what timeframes are. And we really were having open, honest, professional dialogue about the concern and how we could address it.
That's great. Nice to hear that that went so well. And thank you for telling us about it. It's nice to, I mean, that's a perfect example of how code enforcement can work with the community to have, you know, really good outcomes. And it sounds like there were positive outcomes pretty quickly from your involvement in the community organizing around that. I really appreciate knowing that that's going on. I didn't know, I mean, I heard about the case a little bit, but I didn't know anything about all the community involvement. That's really great.
Yeah, and we're really trying to, this is all Crystal Essman's responsibility here within the city and what she's been driving. If you've seen our websites, especially the police one, we're sending out information as quickly as we can about street closure, incidents that take place, cases, arrests. And so we're really trying to be more transparent on social media regarding that. So please make sure that you follow those. That's a huge benefit to everybody. I think the shooting was asked. When was that? July?
Yeah, it happened on, I believe, the 19th or 20th of July.
And I really am not allowed to go into a lot of details about that specific case. We've actually been asked not to. We can't have conversations because most of it is still active investigation and prosecution from the DA, but we did give information. This specific incident and why it was successful is rather than, there's two parts. Either we can blast this out to the entire city and we can get city members from all over the area to come and have conversations, which hasn't proven to be successful. It turns into really a lot of complaints, not really a lot of action. And so this particular incident was specifically targeted to those adjoining neighbors because they were the major stakeholders at that time. And that allowed us to come up with a creative solution. So yes, and Rick has been very instrumental in that. So moving that forward and having him part of this committee and being a liaison to talk about some of the stuff has been really helpful. So thanks, Rick. How many of you have seen the new educational video that came out about code enforcement?
I watched it.
The one I just emailed you?
Yeah, but I get all the notifications. I watched it last week.
I don't know if you want to review it. It's 4 minutes long. If you want to watch it in this forum, or if you want the chair to go ahead and push that out to all of you.
I'm fine with showing it. Go ahead. And,
okay.
It's only 4 minutes. So
Will you bring it up since you can share your screen? I don't have those capabilities.
I have a bunch
I just sent you an email about 30 minutes ago with it again, with the link.
Okay, hold on. I've got my browser's tied up with documents. So is it okay if can you show it quickly? I can switch it so you can show your screen.
I have a case report up, so just hold on 1 second.
Dang. Maybe.
Hello, Inglewood. I'm here today to introduce you to Inglewood's
You want to
code
pause it? Let's see
I
if
think
we
you're
can
going
get
to
it
be
to show
surprised
someone
with the
else.
responsibilities and the positive impact they have.
It's on host and panelists,
here today.
host and panelists. All right, see if it'll let you now share your screen.
It's all, let me
You're a panelist and it's set to allow panelists to share. There we go.
To
Cool.
introduce you to Inglewood's code
let
enforcement.
me rewind that.
Hello, Inglewood. I'm here today to introduce you to Inglewood's Code Enforcement Division. I think you're going to be surprised by their varying responsibilities and the positive impact they have on our community. The mission of Code Enforcement Division is to enhance and preserve our neighborhoods and business districts while providing a safe, healthy, and environmentally friendly community. We strive to gain voluntary compliance through education, community involvement, and enforcement of ordinances in a fair and unbiased manner while providing superior customer service.
The Code Enforcement Division in Inglewood is an arm of the Police Department's Special Operations Division. As part of the Police Department, code officers have access to specialized training in crisis intervention, emergency management, officer safety, de-escalation practices, recognizing handmade explosives, clandestine drug labs, and other public safety hazards.
The Code Enforcement Division's primary role is to educate and gain voluntary compliance. Code officers inspect properties from the public right away and look for accumulations of trash, debris, outdoor storage of junk, overgrowth, along with health and safety concerns. Should you receive a notice of violation, don't worry. The code official will partner with you to gain voluntary compliance. Besides conducting proactive patrols of Inglewood parks and neighborhoods, 1/3 of our time is spent working on animal welfare matters. Making sure that pets are healthy, safe, and living their best lives is a top priority in Inglewood. It can be very traumatizing when a family pet goes missing. Nothing is more rewarding to us than reuniting a pet with its family.
Inglewood's park rangers are also a part of the Code Enforcement Division. Our park rangers are responsible for protecting our city's natural resources, ecosystems, and the wildlife within them. They also protect the people who visit them. Park rangers ensure that everyone has a safe and memorable experience when they visit one of our parks or open spaces.
The City of Inglewood Police Department has full-time mental health clinicians embedded within the department. The code enforcement team utilizes these specialized services to provide valuable resources for mental health-related code matters, along with resources for our most vulnerable residents.
Code enforcement team members are frequently asked to participate in citywide initiatives and committees. Their perspective is highly valued by other city departments because our team members interact with multiple departments on a daily basis. Members participate in diversity, equity, and inclusion, alternative justice programs, wellness, policy review, employee relations, and more. The feedback given by code enforcement team members serving on these committees impacts how policies and procedures are written and implemented.
The Code Enforcement team frequently partners with the Fire Marshal's Office on health and safety-related matters. This includes annual inspections of motels, significant hoarding situations, and food truck enforcement.
To enhance the code enforcement team, the Information Technologies and Public Works departments upgraded and implemented several key pieces of technology. These included mobile laptops, new reporting systems, body-worn cameras, mapping enhancements, upgraded vehicles, and web-based customer service systems such as IngleFix, which allows citizens to report violations with their cell phones. The technology enhancements provide statistical data that is used to develop enforcement priorities within problem areas and lead to an increase in proactive officer-initiated activities.
Code enforcement officers think beyond the boundaries of the city and provide valuable input and testimony to support a variety of statewide legislative changes. Some of these changes include legislation supporting pollinators, closing loopholes for animal breeders, cleaning up language related to their authority, and enhancements to statewide privacy protections for code enforcement and animal control officers.
The city recognizes the value the Code Enforcement Division plays in maintaining the health and the safety of our city. Englewood is a community of choice as a result of the great work this team does. Their ongoing dedication, commitment to the community, and problem-solving abilities enhances the overall quality of our lives. Please join us each October and help us celebrate these dedicated employees with Code Enforcement Appreciation Month.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. So did you help make the script for that?
I wrote the script for that.
You wrote the script? Nice.
It was a great collaboration. So we really wanted to try and do something a little more fun and levity driven and a little bit more friendly to really hit home. I mean, you all have heard, code enforcement, people don't like to be told what to do with their homes, their properties, and their animals. And so we're really trying to make it a little bit more friendly and less stressful. On that note, did I mention to you all the American Association of Code Enforcement's annual conference the last time we met?
Well, isn't that where you were last week?
I was.
I was going to ask about it.
So I did want to give you some information. We were nominated for 3 national level awards. Our evaluation process was over the last 5 years regarding staffing, some statistics, our training, our creative programs, and our overall experience in the city of Englewood. And if you've lived here for more than 5 years, as Councilmember Russell has, and I know that Councilmember Green, Sonia lived here for a while, that you've seen a huge transformation in the codes department from where we were with 2 team members to where we are with a staff of 5 and a park ranger, and the tremendous amount of progress that we've made within our community and being more valued rather than seen as a concern within the city. And it has been a bumpy road. I'll admit that there's been some learning along the ways, and I'm the first one to admit when we've made mistakes, but move forward and learn from those. But based on the 5-year evaluation, the city of Englewood won. We are actually the National Code Department of the Year for the whole nation.
Whoa, wow, congratulations.
So I'm really proud of that. And part of the presentation is about this panel. I had a final presentation I did. There was the original nomination from the Colorado Code Enforcement Association, a variety of supporting letters and documents from members on this panel, past members, and part of the conversation was about the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee and what you all do and how we collaborate to make Englewood a better place. Part of it was also our relationship with council and how we've improved our relationship with council members, being more open and transparent about council's ability in the city manager's office to properly staff us, train us, support where we've moved, to really make some important, impactful changes that are meaningful to our community. Are we perfect? No, we're not a homeowners association. We never will be perfect, but I think we've made tremendous progress in the last 5 years, and I can't wait. The things that I learned at this conference make me really excited for the next 5 years, and we have some ideas that we're going to bring forward to this body and to council that will help us improve our customer service, improve our delivery, and improve the way that we do business here in the city of Englewood from a code enforcement standpoint. I also wanted to let you know that because of this committee and some letters that were written specifically regarding my performance, I received the Excellence in Leadership Award, the National Excellence in Leadership Award as well at this conference. So I'm really proud of the work that this team has done, the work that we have accomplished. We have more work to do, and I really am excited to see where we come in the next 5 years. So thank you for all of your support.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Code Manager Lewis.
Thank you. And that's it for all of my exciting updates for you all. Is there anything I can help you all with?
I'm curious about statistics. So what is the reason we don't get the statistic updates every month like we used to?
We do them quarterly. It was determined that based off of the amount of work that needs to be done, the new system is really, it doesn't print out reports like it did before. And I think we talked about that. The city manager has also asked that we provide those quarterly and then annually because it gives it a more accurate seasonal approach. To dedicate staff to do that on a monthly basis is really time consuming. And considering our limitations, we're only able to do that quarterly. So you will have the quarterly statistics coming up soon.
So the new system is less capable of spitting out statistics than the old system?
The reports, that specific report was the best feature of that. The old system that was archaic, wasn't being serviced or was not even able to be upgraded. The platform actually has been disabled by the company. That was the only positive thing about working with that old system. There were other complexities. But this system, we actually have to physically pull statistics from a different area and hand transcribe them into a statistical reporting database.
That sounds pretty bad. Hand?
We're not really happy with this program. We are experiencing some challenges with some upgrades. This is in Arapahoe County, so everyone in Arapahoe County is involved with this reporting system, and we all bought into it together, and we're all experiencing quite a few challenges. And again, this is not just from us, it's from the police side as well. So we have more conversations about this program and our options moving forward.
Is the plan to keep it where it requires manual reentry of data into a separate system, or is that being implemented as automation?
I can't answer that because we're still in negotiations and conversations with the programming. And that's way above my pay scale.
Sure, I'm sure. Okay. Any other questions for Code Manager Lewis? Go ahead, Member Strom.
Yes, I've noticed that at several of the parks in my neighborhood lately, there's new signage up, and it's referencing code 1143. And it looks like the way it's written is that the code enforcement or the police have the right to remove people from the park if they have inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, so that is a code of, I'm sorry, I should let you finish your question. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just, they were new signs and just in the last month. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood them correctly.
Yes, so that is mostly handled by the police department. It is a code of conduct for city properties. Which also, not just our parks, but also extends to our city buildings. We're asking that people partake in a certain decorum, a standard of participating in our open spaces. And if they're unable to do that, there are certain steps that have to take place. First, a warning before they're giving a trespass. This came about as a ruling from another court that said that we can't outright trespass people from city properties without certain steps being taken. And so that's where this came from. And city council is the one that reviewed this with the city attorney and approved this code of conduct.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I understood what it was all about.
That's the easiest.
Especially since it was new signage.
Yes, well, I'm glad they got in the parks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you give us any examples of what's the intent or need for this is? Like what kinds of behavior was this?
So this was mainly focused at a few of our parks where people might be disobeying multiple park rules, camping overnight, not just a violation, but trespassing them. In some of our city buildings, people were bringing in items that couldn't be brought in. We're acting inappropriate, saying inappropriate things, doing inappropriate activities within our city buildings. And so we were having a difficult time in managing those. And so staff members felt unsafe. And so this was the result of a variety of legislative ideas.
And the posting is part of this
requirement,
the process. Okay, the steps that are necessary to be able to ask people to leave or.
Yes, and we can't permanently trespass someone. I think the most is 90 days. We're really looking not to keep people from the city. we're looking for people to modify their inappropriate behaviors. And so that's really what the intent of this is. And
Thank
we
you.
could also, as code enforcement, it is written in the code as a designee to trespass people from parks. If they have multiple park rules violations, continue to bring dangerous dogs to the park, we have the ability to also issue those. We prefer not to. We prefer to have an officer, a police officer, but sometimes that's just not possible due to caseload. So we do have the ability to do that as well. We have not yet, and hopefully we don't have to. But if we do, that is a tool available.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Member Strom. Did anyone else have any questions for Code Manager Lewis? Okay, thank you, Code Manager Lewis. Moving on, update from City Council Liaison, City Council Member Russell. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for all that you're doing. Actually, first of all, I do want to congratulate Code Manager Lewis on his award and also for the department. And we do appreciate all the work that the Code Enforcement Department does for the city. So congratulations. And then I'm gonna just keep it pretty short tonight. Last night I attended the Budget Advisory Committee meeting, and Parks and Rec supervisor was there and actually gave a report on the parks, and especially the off-leash program at Jason Park. And since the permanent fences have been put up, things are running much more smoothly, and there are not as many incidents. And I'm assuming Code Manager Lewis can confirm this. In the off-leash dog parks, since the fence is completed, and things seem to be running much more smoothly since that is working out. I want to thank you for looking at the impoundment ordinance, and City Council will take the recommendations you give us and look at those. I believe it's going to be on the agenda for November 7th. So I don't want to take any more of your time. I appreciate all that you're doing, and just thank you.
Thank you, City Council Member Russell. Did anyone have any questions for her? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our communications subcommittee update. So Vice Chair Watson is still not here tonight. And then we have Member Redovid, who's also a part of this. I just right before our meeting realized I had not sent them the communication from our previous subcommittee head, our former member Johnson, and I did send those to them, but they would have just gotten them right before the meeting. And so Member Redovid, there's like 2 people on those emails that are probably worth both you and Vice Chair Watson reaching out to and get their input on where things are at and how to communicate with them, and how to, because our previous main involvement here was coming up with topics for the Inglewood magazine and working with the communications department on those articles. And what I think you guys should do is, find out where things are at with them, figure out what topics are coming up and if they can use any help, and then potentially proactively query us at this time in our meetings. And we can discuss ideas for those articles or any other, social media posts, etc. But I encourage you both to communicate with I believe it's Harguson, and I forget the other person's name, but check in with them and maybe let us know what you find out in our next meeting.
Yep, no problem.
Cool, thank you. And unless you wanted to say anything else now about that, but I doubt that you really have anything at this point, right?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read it before, but
yeah, sorry for the late posting on that.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then let's move into our new business. So this is the amendments to Title VII around impounding animals. That was, we discussed some in our last meeting, and then in our agenda, we have, you know, the whole section with the proposed edits that we're to go over and see if we have any thoughts. And I definitely have some questions for Code Manager Lewis. And we'll just have you, you know, we can move through it and see who has questions on any page or in general. Just raise your hand and let me know if you have anything you want to go over. Does anyone want to start with any questions or thoughts or concerns with any of the edits? Okay, I guess I'll start. So on our agenda page 5, I'm not really, you know, it's hard to know how to reference things. So it's the beginning. My first question is just to clarify, Code Manager Lewis, the changes that are proposed is everything that is in italics or struck through in this agenda, right?
Yes, let me, I need to bring up that packet again. I apologize. I closed everything when I shared my screen.
Yeah, no problem.
And maybe
and I could share mine. I could, because I've got this
if you
up.
want to
Maybe
share
that's
it,
the way to do it.
And I don't know if you want to go through everything step by step or.
I was figuring just the things that we have questions on.
Okay. Yes, so this would be the bill that's moving forward, or the piece of legislation to council regarding EMC. So the portion that you're reviewing is, there's just a couple of highlighted things, but the major bulk of it would be at the beginning and anywhere there's any strike throughs or underlines.
Right. So everything that's not in italics or underlined or struck through is what is current code, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I figured.
And maybe Maureen can also, if she needs to clarify any of that, because she's more involved with these specific types of documents than I am.
Is there, Ms. Willis, is that accurate? The current, everything in here that's not italics or struck through is in the current published municipal code?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Okay. So my first question was on, so this page, our page 5 of 86. Any such animal may be impounded, and not must, not ticket must, and not necessarily cats. Like that's where I'm like, I'm still confused about what we talked about last time and what the person who spoke during our public forum, Ms. Dickerson, brought up in regard to the Good Samaritan scenario with someone bringing and like, you know, my fence, my dog gets out of my fence because he dug a hole under the fence that I hadn't put, you know, already buried bricks in that spot. My neighbor doesn't know it's my dog and takes it to the shelter. It's got rabies tags on it, and they figure out how to contact me, or I find out through next door like that person did. And it's a Saturday and I go down to the shelter, and in our last meeting, you said that a code enforcement person would come to the shelter and issue a ticket, even though there wasn't a rabies issue. And then I would be able to get my dog right then.
Right. So I can't really speak to Ms. Dickerson's specific case. She had sent a notice to the city attorney's office. So I'm not permitted to talk about her specific
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm trying to understand
Typically, yes.
the
So
process.
you can't put must or may. We can't use must in any kind of ordinance because then that means the city must do that every time. Even if you looked at criminal law, it never says must. It says may because there's discretion in certain aspects. So that's why it has may. Most of these changes specifically are not regarding the Good Samaritan situation. It's specifically with with animals that have gone through due process, and we don't have to have a warrant because this is exigent circumstances. It's a dog that's neglected, it's cruelty, a dog that has bitten or attacked someone or another dog or killed someone or an animal, that we have the ability under state law and this law to impound that animal. That's an exigent circumstance. We're really trying to streamline this so that it's more of the cost of care. So this doesn't involve the circumstance that the speaker was, the guest was speaking about, or any other Good Samaritan situation. The shelter is required to report to us any impounds because under Title VII, it specifically states that we shall maintain a record of all animals impounded. Whether it's a Good Samaritan dropping off an animal at a shelter, it's still considered an impound. We're holding someone's property as a designated authority. And so we will hear from that shelter that an animal was found in Inglewood. It's also a way for us to better reunify. Not all animals have tags or license. That's another conversation for another day. Have microchips, tags, or identification on them. So we really rely on the shelter plus us keeping a record because people are going to call one of two places when their animal goes missing. They're going to call the police dispatch, code enforcement, or they're going to call around to their shelters. And so having that information here with us allows us to better unify those parties. Does that explain that?
So what is impounded? Is impounded when the city is involved, or is impounded when a Good Samaritan takes an animal to a shelter?
Anytime an animal, because an animal in the city of, in the state, in the country, but specifically we'll talk about Inglewood in Colorado, is property. And so if you are depriving somebody of that property, even if it was found by a Good Samaritan, an impoundment basically is a legal term saying that someone has been designated to hold onto this animal. They're licensed, they're accredited, they're contracted to hold onto this animal until they can be reunified with the owner, or in cases, criminal cases such as cruelty, neglect, or dangerous, that the city is holding onto those animals under that impoundment. So it's just a legal term.
So is the animal considered impounded prior to the code enforcement being notified?
Anytime another person that is not the owner takes control of that animal, even if it was a private person, it's still considered an impound. So if you're walking down the street and you found Fluffy on the side of the road and you take possession of that animal, technically that Good Samaritan is impounding that animal.
Okay.
Because it's not their property.
Okay. And the policy of the city is that is what you told us last time, that if an animal ends up at the shelter and it was caught within city limits, then the shelter, because of an agreement with the city, is going to contact code enforcement.
So that's not specifically stated in the contract. It is best practice. And I want to put this into context. There's multiple other jurisdictions that utilize this shelter. So if it was Greenwood Village or Littleton or Sheridan or Denver, the shelter will notify if a dog is found in that jurisdiction, then the shelter will notify that jurisdiction that this particular animal matching this description, maybe these tags, is at the shelter, has been impounded, brought in by a Good Samaritan, so that that jurisdiction is also aware. If for some reason we're 7 square miles about, and we have joining jurisdictions, the dog could have come from Denver, the dog wound up in Inglewood, an Inglewood dog could wind up in Denver. We can also work with those agencies to try and figure out, and this is why we contract with the shelter. The shelter ultimately tries to reunify any animals, specifically Good Samaritans, that are lost with their pets. So scanning for microchip, pinging the microchip, but sometimes can take 24 hours to get a response back on the systems as to who is the last registered owner. working with the local jurisdiction to try and help notify them. They post stuff sometimes on their social media or their web pages about dogs. And so that just starts the process of this property, if it's unclaimed, Good Samaritan drops it off or city person drops it off, a whole legal process of holding that animal and when can that animal be rehomed or transferred to another facility to be rehomed. So that's part of the legal aspect and liability that's in this ordinance.
And is there a situation separate from what we heard about this anecdote, but going forward, where a citizen's animal ends up at the shelter, they find out, they go down there, it's Saturday morning, and they won't be able to get their dog back?
No, that's not correct. An officer is always available from code enforcement or police department 24 hours a day when the shelter is operating during business hours to be available to handle the situation.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So if someone had that situation like that lady was mentioning, who would it be that they would escalate their concern to get assistance if the person who had the dog wasn't helping them?
So typically the process would come to me or a patrol supervisor to work with the on-call code officer. We have code enforcement officials and animal welfare on call 24 hours a day. Without getting into that particular case, I am notified if there's any concerns or discrepancies. I'm on call all the time to work with my team and command staff. So someone is always available, is able to work with the circumstance and make it reunify the animal.
Thank you.
And just, because whenever I'm looking at language like this, I'm going to think about how it could be gamed. If I decided I didn't like the cats that are always wandering around my neighborhood, crapping in my yard, could I start catching cats, take them to the shelter and force those people to get tickets?
So it is actually illegal to trap animals in the city of Inglewood, specifically domestic animals. However, if an animal is on your property, you believe it to be a stray, you don't know where it lives, yes, you can take the cat to the Humane Society. The Humane Society would do the exact same process that it would for a dog, notifying where it was located. We do have a cat at large ordinance. Cats really can't leave your yard, just like any dog. And this would happen for any pet. If it was a snake, we found a snake, a very large one in someone's apartment that happened to wander in there. We tried to reunify the animal and give them a violation for the snake disrupting this poor lady's breakfast. We've had parakeets, we've had turtles. So any animal that process would go through.
Member Hines?
Can you clarify, I guess, again, it's maybe one of those terms that you look at and you go, everybody can interpret this differently. On page 2, under the at-risk animal section, number 2 refers to repeatedly runs at large. What does repeatedly mean?
3 or more. So we actually have a current case that's working through the system that the animal has been found running at large 6 times in the last year and has been adjudicated, meaning found guilty or pled guilty. This is basically an additional, more severe consequence outside of neglect that is an automatic enhancement to the charge. And that's typically done through the courts. So the courts will see, okay, well, this person's been here now 5 times. We know this dog, so we already knew this. And we have to add this added enhancement at risk, which has additional penalties and fines associated with it.
Okay, so angry neighbor has a bone to pick with neighbor 1, and neighbor 1 lets his dog loose twice in 2 weeks. Can that be claimed to be repeatedly?
No, I think when you look at these codes, you also need to look at it from a standard of reasonable. What is a reasonable? And we did have a case like this where an animal was let out multiple times by the neighbor, and the neighbor ended up getting charged. So that's a whole nother circumstance. Also, a court is not going to proceed. We are not going to proceed from a code enforcement standpoint if there's an affirmative defense. We have to follow the probable cause circumstance, which is a huge burden to move any cases through court or issue summons. So in that circumstance, that would not apply.
Okay, thank you.
These are all great questions, by the way. I like the way you all think. I actually think my team, when we ponder all these, we think about some of these aspects to see, well, what's the concern? What can be raised about this? What would the public think about this? What would be, if someone was to take advantage of this ordinance, how would they take advantage of it? So we constantly think about those things.
Anything else on first page? Page 5, okay. And then remember Emil Hines had that on there. I also wondered on what was the reason behind changing the bodily injury definition from requiring medical treatment to not requiring that?
It's the type of burden. It's basically legal. The way it's defined legal. The standard of serious bodily injury, which is the way it was defined before, is a very high burden. And so we weren't able to charge on some of these cases with dangerous behavior. We had to go with at risk. So this allows us to really address the behavior of that animal over just the medical terminology.
So can you give us, I mean, it's almost always dogs, right?
No, we've had cats.
Oh, really? There are adjudicated cats?
No longer, but we have had those cases. We
Have
no
had
longer
it.
have to be registered.
But it's, so basically if someone, with the old definition, if someone got a bite, but they didn't go to the doctor, then you were limited as to how you could prosecute it.
If they didn't go to the doctor or they did not have serious bodily injury, and serious bodily injury is a terminology that's used primarily, mostly for police work, for criminal charges. And so that burden is very high. To try and prove serious bodily injury, you have to get medical reports. You've got to get stuff signed by doctors. We have to, it's a higher burden. This one actually reduces the burden so that we're allowed to effectively charge the dog with dangerous because of their behavior over just the medical definition. So it goes hand in hand.
It makes sense, but I thought it was worth asking.
Great question too.
I also noticed you've got lion, tiger, and bobcat. I think we're more likely to have lynxes than tigers.
This is actually something taken out of state ordinances. And so to be more consistent, we needed to put that in there because we're trying to mirror that. The reason it's in there is, unfortunately, there are quite a few people that still engage in exotic animal trading and breeding. And so that's why that was put in there. We do have large facilities in adjoining neighbors, adjoining states that still allow for pet lions, believe it or not, in this day and age. Colorado does not. It's outright prohibited, with the exception of sanctuaries. And so to be consistent and not be allowing a loophole for this type of animals in our city, we had to put that in.
But it makes sense to specify bobcat, but not lynx.
So I'm not, you can ask to have links added.
It just seems weird that you would specify like species, but
links
not one that actually might show up.
Yeah, so this is really more to capture those hobby breeders. I don't know of too many lynx that are being hobby bred.
Right.
These 3 specific cats are very highly prized.
I see. Because people try to pet them.
So just think of it, if this wasn't in there, all of a sudden, because we're home rule, we might have somebody say, oh, it's a great idea. I'm going to move into Inglewood and I'm going to bring my pet lion. I'm not kidding. You talk about thinking about pulling one over on us. This is one of them.
Anyone else have anything on this page? Go ahead, member Emil Hines.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Jump in again. And I guess I'm going ahead a little bit here, but domesticated animal versus dog or cat. what was the intent of trying to broaden the terminology there?
So this was actually changed, I don't know, 6 months ago, beginning of the year, Carson.
Yeah,
We specifically only had dog and cat defined in our ordinances. And over the last 20 years, we've seen the pet market and our companion animals drastically change, where we may just have a cat or a dog, but people are now moving into other types of pets. And so we weren't able to work on the interest of that animal. We had cases of cruelty and neglect regarding certain types of animal species that were not dog and cat, and it teared me up. We presented evidence to this body where we weren't able to take those animals from that person and leave them in such deplorable, horrible conditions where the animal was just could not thrive there.
Okay, thank you.
and yeah, that was something we changed recently because of that specific situation or type of situation Code Manager Lewis brought up. I did notice that it seemed like, let's see. Why does this section, so dangerous animal, any domesticated animal, that number 2 goes back to being specifically dog instead of the general term?
I don't know. That's a good point.
It seemed like that should probably stay the general term instead of going back to specific. And plus, this is above where dog is even defined.
Miss Willis,
Yes.
are you able, when we move this forward, I'm sure there's going to be some changes. So far, this is the only change. Are you able to document the request to change that back to domesticated animal?
You bet.
Thank you. Good catch. I didn't even catch that one.
Yeah, because then it's down here where dog is defined.
Right.
Too. And then, so livestock is considered domesticated?
So state definitions are very complicated. Livestock, if for the purpose of this ordinance, we outright prohibit all livestock. And so you can't have domesticated livestock, and this is primarily the pet industry. So mini pigs, mini horses, mini cows, more of not the ones that would produce food, food, water, feathers, fur. That's a more legal definition from the state, claiming that it would be a domesticated animal.
Okay. And then on the running at large on private property, what about electronic fence, the hidden electronic fences with collars?
We don't permit those. They are known to have significant failures and have significant concerns. And so it's not recommended. It's actually not good practice. If you lived in a rural area in the country where this would be more utilized, but because we're so confined to quarter to half acre lots and so densely populated that the failure could potentially result in some liability. So we really didn't feel that would be in the best interest of the animals.
Is that something that was already not allowed in Inglewood, or is that a change?
Nope, it's something that you're allowed to have it as a backup or to utilize within your property. But it's also, we actually had a case that was prosecuted regarding something similar to this, where it caused undue harm to the animal. And so it's not something that is best practices, which is why it's been put in.
So if someone utilized it and they were successful with it, like they had a hidden fence with the dog with a shock collar or whatever, and it worked and their dog never left their property, is there any reason that they would be prosecuted for running at large?
If they are able to articulate in an affirmative defense that way of restraining the animal and keeping it under reasonable control at the properties, at the owner's property, then yes, that's fine. We just don't want animals leaving the property. So if that works and they're able to articulate in court or even through us, we would not prosecute that. But it's the instance where that animal leaves the property.
Right. Well, and in that case, they are running at large. It was a failure. Okay. Thank you. Anything else on this page? On 8, I had a question on I guess you've already pretty much addressed it, because I had cat running at large, but you're saying that they're treated the same technically. And
Any
then,
animal can be at large in the city of Inglewood now. So like the snake that never was reclaimed in this poor person's house, it was at large off the property.
and then on the tethering, what about, and maybe this is just a completely separate thing, but barking. Like if a dog is tethered and barks the whole time, how is that addressed? It's separate from tethering, because if the tethering part of it is within these limits, but then they're barking the whole time, that's a whole separate issue.
So barking is a completely different matter, and we're evaluating how we can move that. Like we had talked about previously, there is some ordinance changes that we're evaluating regarding that to make it more user friendly. So it's two different actions of the animal. The tethering is more for the ownership of the animal and how you treat the animal. The barking is the behavior of the dog, so they have to be treated separately.
Okay. Raise hands if you have anything else. I think I have 1 or 2 more questions myself. Yeah, so what's been brought up obviously is impoundment, but there's actually no changes in here as part of these proposed changes, right?
Not of that specific change. Part of this was specifically dealing with the cost of care and how that was applied for animals that had due process. So yes, this part has not changed.
And what does known to city personnel translate to?
So back in the day, this ordinance is pretty old and has been outdated, but known to city personnel. We were a small city and everybody knew everybody and everybody knew what animal belonged where. We just don't have that capability now. There are repeat offenders that are known to the city. We have seen them. It does also allow us discretion. So if we're driving down the street and we get a call for a dog at large, we put the dog in our car, and then we're flagged down by someone saying, oh, this is my dog, here's my information. We can just return that dog to the person on the street. We don't have to take it to the shelter. So that means known to us.
But you're saying in practice, that's never the case. You're always going to ticket?
No, there's discretion with that. We typically will issue a violation for at large. There is a little bit of discretion. For example, we had a case a few weeks ago where we went out, we had that big windstorm. We picked up an animal that was in someone's front yard. It's actually their front yard. That kept going between the neighbor's house and their yard. It was determined that the fence blew down. We didn't issue them an at-large because the dog kept going back to its own property. So that was an instance where we used discretion. And we provided education, and then we tried to help them fix their fence.
And then I think I guess, yeah, I saw dog or cat. But I guess those are the only ones that get vaccinated. You don't want domesticated animals in these situations.
So there would be no circumstance where in Inglewood you would have a mammal, to my knowledge, that would need to have a rabies vaccination, because those mammals are outright prohibited in the city of Inglewood.
Okay, that's why this stayed dog or cat. Did anyone else have any questions? That was all of mine. Okay, thank you very much for going through all that with us. Unless anyone has anything else they'd like to discuss on this, then I guess we'll just make that one change recommendation to City Attorney Niles on updating that one spot to be here, domesticated animals instead of dogs specifically.
Yes, I think Member Hughes has a question.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'd missed the color of the hand on your background.
It's not related so much to the edits, but I had a couple questions on number one, where do you get, although when we lived in Denver, we would get our rabies certificate or our little things, the little
The tag.
identification tags from Denver. Where do you get them here when you register
So we
for
don't
rabies?
have a licensing program yet. It is an option the city is moving forward in exploring. But you would get a rabies tag from your veterinarian, or you would have a copy of the record. I always recommend, those collars you're required to have something affixed to your collar. We will accept a digital form. A lot of people are carrying those because chains can be cumbersome or they're attaching them to their. So yes, that's where you would receive your rabies vaccination certificate, would be from your veterinarian.
But they don't issue the little tag.
You don't have to have specifically that tag, you just have to have rabies
Okay.
vaccination. So just take a picture of if you're ever contacted, and we can contact any animal. It's considered administrative contact to check for rabies. Just carry around a picture of the veterinarian record that shows the rabies vaccination expires on this date.
Right, okay. And I had one other question. It's not related again to the edits, which I thought were fine, but it's the removal of excrement damage to shrubbery and plants. And it says that it's illegal for people to leave their dog or cat excrement out and not pick it up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
How does that get enforced when you see a person that's constantly violating it?
So this
how do you get it enforced?
Yeah, that's a great question. This takes into two accounts. One is the property owner that has the dogs that lets them out in the backyard and doesn't pick up their waste at all, which causes a nuisance. And so we do rely on our neighbors to report that. Smell is subjective, but understanding that and getting that statement, we would do that. The other thing is we live in an era where everyone has cameras. And so we do get Ring video, we get cell phone video. People know where the dogs live that may be doing this in their front porch. Some of them are at off leash with their owners when they do it and they don't pick it up. And we have been out and we have issued summonses to those people.
You have what? I'm sorry?
We have issued tickets to those people.
Okay, so you would, so if you took a picture and everything and were able to identify the person, you would call code enforcement, show them what it is, and then they would go forward and do the tickets.
Yep, we would, and we have.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Member Hughes. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And
just for a procedural matter, and maybe Ms. Willis can correct me, I think because this ordinance has already been put forward for council and will be reviewed, I think it would be a council member, your liaison, that would make a motion to make that edit, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Ms. Willis?
Has this gone for first reading already?
It was tabled and is coming back forward on November 7th.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's necessary. I think that just this meeting, and although you all could vote on it to change that, I think it's actually just a grammatical error. So I don't think any of that legislative stuff needs to happen. I think it just needs to be changed, and it was just overlooked.
okay, so you're saying that you could just take that straight to the city attorney and we don't have to do anything?
That's correct.
Okay, well then we'll just count on you to do that. That's fine. Thank you. Member Emmelhans?
My teacher's coming out in me. As I rode through it and read different sections, some of the corrections and things had some misspellings. Will that be reviewed prior to finalization?
Absolutely.
Thank
But
you.
if you notice specific spelling mistakes, send an email with them to Ms. Willis and myself, and we'll just make sure that they get picked up.
Can I use my red pencil and everything?
Yep.
Okay, I'll take it. Thank you.
And then I didn't realize I was muted. Thanks for notifying me, Ms. Willis, but I was saying, okay, let's move on from new business into our unfinished business. And I did.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this was brought forward to you all to review, did you want to vote on whether or not you want to move this forward, or if you want to deny this moving forward? I think that's what council member and council was asking of this body, if you recommend this to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Is there a motion? Someone want to make a motion to recommend that the edits that we just reviewed go forward? Member Strom, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just approving.
Well, rather than me make the motion, does someone want to state it? Do you want to? Or do you want?
I'll let you do it.
Member Emmelhans, go ahead.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
the motion, yeah. Well, I motion that the amendments be moved forward upon with the corrections and amendments that we made, and that we approve it.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Member Hughes. And Ms. Willis, will you please take a vote on that?
You can just ask all in favor and I'll just record what everybody says.
All right.
Unless
I'm
you
gonna-
want me to individually ask each one of them.
Is anyone against the motion?
Well, you can't do it that way. It has to be in the affirmative.
In the
All in
affirmative?
favor.
All right. Well, all in favor state aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And since we
Aye.
can see everyone, raise your hand. Just get it
Aye.
all. Okay, thank you. So that was a unanimous aye for that motion. So that passes and these edits will move forward. Thank you for going through that with us, Code Manager Lewis. And then, all right, now we'll move on to unfinished business with our bylaws. So I edited our bylaws as we discussed last week. I don't think there's anything different that I did other than I did throw in those Oxford commas. Hopefully you all had a chance to take a look at it, or you really didn't need to do anything too scrutinous because it was exactly as we discussed. But we should go ahead and have a vote on that as well. Does someone want to make a motion for those changes? Please.
I guess I'm doing all of them. I motion that the changes be accepted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, let's be visual. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
And I thank you. All right, that was unanimous. So our bylaw changes are official. And let's go ahead and does anybody have any specific topics to discuss in future meetings? Code Manager Lewis, are there any things coming up or other potential things that would be useful for us to address?
Not at the top of my head.
Okay.
I really think that this body is doing well, and I appreciate all of your hard work. We're not running into currently any unique trends. Actually, I forgot to mention something that has come forward recently regarding trash haulers. and trash services, and there is a council request pending on this. We are going to run into some. We've been having some enforcement concerns related to how trash is being picked up, when it's being picked up. So basically some licensing concerns. Those have been addressed, but as of right now, Waste Management has notified its service area that they are no longer doing alley side pickup. And I believe there's a couple other conditions. I did not receive a postcard. I did speak to a few citizens today regarding that. I don't know if they're requiring their specific bins. I had heard that that was part of the condition as well. And so we're really feeling a lot of those concerns. There's nothing that code enforcement can do right now to support our residents other than let them know that they do have a choice in service provider. We are a choice city, and that is up to each individual homeowner, resident, or occupant to determine how they want, who they use for their trash hauling services. But it has, Waste Management has the largest portion of service area, I think a third, based off of what they told me, of our residents that utilize that service. So I did want to bring that forward, that is moving its way through, and it has caused some concern for residents.
So you're saying that Waste Management has notified some residents that they're stopping existing alley service?
They are discontinuing all alley service. Their new trucks are unable to maneuver alley side. They are wider than the way our alleys are designed. They have had some concerns related to some power lines and their new automated systems. Instead of being two-party trash hauling services where they use two people to go pick up trash, they're finding creative and better ways to reduce their expenses and provide services. And so they're utilizing trucks that have automated arms, and those arms cannot operate in our alleyways. So they notify.
Right. So they're trying to maximize profits and not provide the service that they've traditionally offered.
Yes. So as a licensed trash hauler, they can set up their own business model, and that is something that they have expressed to their service area.
City
And
council member. Oh, go ahead.
I also wanted to let you know that other trash hauling services that are a part of this licensing have already discontinued, and they notified their members, I don't know, well over a year ago, 2 years ago. And so a lot of people switched to Waste Management because they were the only ones doing alley service, and now they've discontinued that.
City council member Russell.
Thank you. That I was the one that asked the question, the council request. We do have rules that the city can enforce, and that's what I wanted to know. What are the rules that we have? Because the other problem is, not only are they requiring to use their containers, they will no longer be picking up extra bags of trash, which in essence really eliminates all yard waste. So that's going to be problematic for the city unless we can handle that. And I don't know if that's something that this committee has authority over. I don't know if the part of the code that I don't know what section of the code that is.
Yeah, it falls under licensing requirements. It's a special type of license, and those ordinances would fall under that. And I think hopefully you can get more of your answers from the council request. I can do my best to answer any questions as part of this forum if you want me to try and answer some of them. I'm familiar with a lot of the ordinances. I think Waste Management, from what I'm understanding, is they're just asking that those bags be put in your containers rather than on the side, because again, their automated systems can't pick those up. Or I think they're allowing to schedule specialized pickup for yard cleanup, and you can schedule that on a separate time where they would send out a separate pickup.
That was not in the postcard.
I'm sorry about that.
And the bottom line is you can get a 96-gallon trash can for free, but if you want any more trash cans, it will be $6 a month rental fee on each extra trash can that you have.
And I hear you. I feel the pain of our citizens as someone who had to get an extra trash can. Yes, I hear you.
Well, I think it ultimately could be a problem for the city if we don't take care of it, because if the citizens can't afford to have their trash hauled away, that's going to create a problem for the city too. So, do you know, Office or Code Manager Lewis, if the trash code falls under the authority of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee or not?
No, because it's specifically with licensing under a licensing provision, not a nuisance matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Why doesn't the city just make it a requirement that haulers provide alley service for trash and recycling if they want to be able to serve the city?
That's exactly what I asked.
I'm going to pose it from this standpoint. Based on my training and experience, this is just anecdotal to throw out to you all. I haven't had professional conversations with the haulers. I think the concern might be is if we push back on one of these haulers, and again, there's really only 3 major haulers because all the little ones have been bought out, is Waste Management could potentially come back and say, fine, then we no longer will service Inglewood. And I'll be very honest with you, Waste Management has continued contracts with service areas in smaller cities to be able to provide services to their larger contracts like Inglewood. And so we do run the risk of potentially creating more of a monopoly with one group over another. And if we really articulate those concerns and require it, we are also risking us as a city creating a bigger problem and them telling us, well, fine, then we just won't service you. We will devote our resources somewhere else.
But at the same time, the city's pushing increased density, which makes it harder to have cans on the curb anyway, which makes it more difficult for haulers to be able to even access cans. It's a mess, and it's a very frustrating issue, as you all know, I'm quite aware of after 2 years on the trash and recycling committee. But City Council Member Russell, you had something else?
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. My other biggest concern is it doesn't really impact me. I don't have an alley, so we have street side pickup anyway. But all of the alleys in the city, it's going to create huge traffic problems picking up in the street. And especially as we increase density, I don't know if you've ever been down Logan when on trash day and they're picking up on Logan, you get stuck behind a trash truck. You could be there for a while. So there's a lot of problems. According to the licensing, I do believe that if an alley was available, alley pickup originally was required. So I suppose when I was little, we had incinerators and it was my job to burn the trash. So I guess we could go back to incinerators and just forget trash pickup. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Member Emmelhans?
Yeah, I know we're kind of way off the code stuff right now, which is, I guess, okay. What happened? And I'm sorry that I didn't follow this. What happened to the idea of having a single hauler in the city? Did that just go to the wayside, or where is that at?
We put out an RFP that there was a citizen committee made, and we put out an RFP, and both of the haulers that responded to it didn't satisfy the requirements of it. And then the committee recommendation to city council was push back on the haulers and get, these points, which were alley service, yard waste, and not more than a reasonable cost. And city council, instead of trying to negotiate, decided to give up.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion for future meetings? We'll be back on our regular schedule for third Wednesday next month, which is, does anyone know that date offhand? The 16th of November. So we'll see everyone then. Thank you very
Um,
much. Oh, go ahead.
One more thing, I apologize. Typically, you all have gone on a hiatus or taken the month of December off just because it's falls within usually that holiday week. Is that something that you guys wanted to continue, vote on? What are your thoughts? Sorry about my frog.
No problem. I mean, at this point, we don't have any like important business. We don't even have anything lined up for our next meeting. And then we've already decided we're going to do in person in January. You know, I'm not opposed to skipping December. As far as we're the week before Thanksgiving for next month, so that seems reasonable. But I mean, we can also decide officially then about December, but I think we could plan on skipping December unless something pressing came up. I see some nods. I see all nods. All right, so let's plan on skipping December, and then we'll meet next month, and we'll see you then.
Shall I put it on the agenda to vote on next time?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. And
May I ask if Councilmember Russell feels comfortable staying on after we all leave and we stop the recording just for her and I to have a quick conversation? Is that okay?
I don't know if you're going to respond right now, City Council Member Russell. But I think we can all
It's not
leave.
to discuss any business.
Yeah, no, I understand. So, all right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.